Yeah, I should never have gotten into Twitter. Twitter's just a sewer.
Yeah.
Bad temptation to violate the 8th commandment repeatedly.
You don't have to jump into a sewer to know it's filthy.
That's true.
Bringing you law, gospel, and guns. Welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio.
Welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about faith, firearms, and freedom. We talk about guns, hunting, competition, and the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is episode number 71, brought to you by Cook's Holsters, American-made custom Kydex holsters with a lifetime warranty and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. CooksHolsters.com. Welcome to the show. Hope you had a great week. Thank you again for making Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your day. As you listen to this, Sergeant Bill and I will be recovering from our trip to Hot Springs, Arkansas for the Arkansas State IDPA Championship. We'll have more details about that in next week's show. For the second straight week, we have a special guest, a young man who is using his experience in armed self-defense to teach the urban community about their Second Amendment rights. Marcus Weldon is a lifelong resident of Detroit, a concealed carry permit holder who became known as the Santa Shooter back in December of 2014 after a company Christmas party dressed in a Santa suit, and thanks to a series of unfortunate events, bad decisions, bad police work, and unscrupulous prosecuting, Marcus faced 20 to 30 years in prison simply for defending his life with a firearm. We'll be right back. Sergeant Bill kicks off the show right after this. As many of you know, Sergeant Bill and I are competitive shooters. We're also reloaders. Bill helped me to get started last year, but I've still got a lot to learn. One thing I do know, though, you need a good source for supplies and components. So let me tell you about U.S. Reloading Supply. Yeah, there are bigger suppliers out there, but what sets U.S. Reloading Supply apart from the rest is their dedication to customer satisfaction. Check them out at usreloadingsupply.com. They carry the top name brands like Starline, Rainier, Barry's, Remington, Spear, and Hornady. If you've got a special order like primers and powder that you don't see on their website, give them a call for a quote. I did and got a great price. Excellent customer service, fast delivery, prices that include shipping, and a promise to match or beat any retailer's price, including shipping. Call them today, 941-451-7357, or visit them today at usreloadingsupply.com and use the promo code Lutheran2017 to save 10% off your order. usreloadingsupply.com.
Time now for another Ballistic Minute with Sergeant Bill Sylvia.
This is Sergeant Bill with your Ballistic Minute. Have you heard this one? Fast isn't fast, smooth is fast. I hate this saying too, but it does have some merit. Trying to move fast, actively trying to be fast, creates undue muscle tension, which is actually going to make your movements slower. Now, being fast without control will create momentum, and momentum will make it hard for you to get the gun to positions, transition, many other different things, and stop where you want to stop. So on draws, just being fast will create a bounce when the gun comes out into the firing position, and the gun will move around and it'll be hard to get to your sights, which is actually taking time. If you move fast but present to the sights smoothly, so everything is quickly, but then the very last second as you press all the way out, you do it smoothly, you'll be quicker to your first shot. And that's what really being fast is. Being fast on transitions will make you over-transition because you'll go from one target to the next and you'll be moving so fast it'll have a hard time stopping. That's the momentum you're talking about. And then you'll have to adjust to try and get back on target. Now, if you go fast but slow down as you're moving into the position, the new target, so you start your transition fast, but you slow down as you get into your next target, so you're doing it smoothly, you'll be able to transition quickly and get to your next shot much faster. Now, when you're moving from position A to position B or wherever it may be, if you're just trying to be fast, you're probably going to be very herky-jerky and overrun your positions and have a hard time stopping. And in IDPA, you'll be out of position, out of your fault lines and stuff like that, as well as in USPSA. But if you go fast but slow down into position as you're getting there, and you'll do it much more smoothly, it'll be much more effective, and you'll get to the shooting faster. Because that's really what we're trying to do, is be quicker to your next shot. A perfect example of this is Max Michel. If you ever see a video of Max Michel, when he shoots from one position and he goes into another position, he's moving really fast, but as he's coming into that next position he needs to stop at, he uses short, choppy steps, and he lowers his body as he's doing that. So it slows his body's momentum and it gets him into that position without overrunning it or sliding into place or having too much momentum. So we want to be fast, but sometimes you need to be smooth. But being just smooth really is usually just slow. Lots of practice will make your movements that are supposed to be really fast seem like they're really smooth. And that's usually what most people are seeing when they say fast isn't fast, smooth is fast. They're looking at somebody who's done that draw 1,000, 10,000 times, and they're doing it as fast as they can do it, but it just looks like it's smooth because it's such a practiced move that it looks smoother. So get out there and practice. I'm Sergeant Bill. This has been your Ballistic Minute.
Sergeant Bill Sylvia is a 15-year veteran of the Dallas Police Department and masterclass competitive shooter. You can watch Sergeant Bill's shooting videos at armedlutheran.us/Sergeant Bill.
The percentage of women who own guns is growing. American women are more knowledgeable and better equipped to defend themselves than ever before. So, why is it that every time I go to a gun shop, I feel like they're talking down to me? Like, hey little lady, let me show you what you need. It's like all they want to do is sell me a pink gun. If you're tired of feeling that too, visit Guns for Gals, a specialty firearms boutique designed to empower women with information about firearm safety and to equip them with the means to protect themselves. The owners go out of their way to find products specifically for women, and they actually listen and ask questions to help you find the right products to meet your needs. If they wouldn't own it themselves, they won't sell it. Guns for Gals is located at 2035 Central Circle, Suite 108 in McKinney, Texas. Open Monday 1 to 6 and Tuesday through Thursday 11 to 7. And on weekends, you can find them at a gun show near you. Or shop online at www.gunsforgals.com. Guns for Gals, more than just a gun shop. It's how gun shopping should be.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
With those words, our founding fathers changed the world. They launched an experiment in freedom, where common lawful citizens are free to speak and gather and worship as they choose. But first among those freedoms is the one freedom that makes the rest possible. For 130 years, we've worked to preserve freedom first. I'm Wayne LaPierre of the National Rifle Association.
You're listening to Armed Lutheran Radio, a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
The eighth commandment forbids the bearing of false witness against your neighbor. Listen to this explanation from Martin Luther in the Large Catechism. In the first place, we take the plainest meaning of this commandment according to the words, "Thou shalt not bear false witness," as pertaining to the public courts of justice, where a poor innocent man is accused and oppressed by false witnesses in order to be punished in his body, property, or honor. Now, this appears as if it were of little concern to us at present, but with the Jews it was quite a common and ordinary matter, for the people were organized under an excellent and regular government. And where there is still such a government, instances of this sin will not be wanting. The cause of it is that where judges, burgomasters, princes, and others in authority sit in judgment, things never fail to go according to the course of the world. Namely, men do not like to offend anybody. They flatter and speak to gain favor, money, prospects, or friendship, and in consequence, a poor man and his cause must be oppressed, denounced as wrong, and suffer punishment. And it is a common calamity in the world that in courts of justice there seldom preside godly men. That passage came to mind the more I thought about Marcus Weldon's case. In Marcus's case, when the evidence in his didn't fit the narrative that the prosecution was pushing, when it was obvious that police had botched the gathering of evidence, the prosecutor pushed ahead with a trial anyway. They offered him plea deals, knowing that he was innocent, knowing that he was probably going to win his case, right up to the moment they walked into court, hoping to still get a conviction. The conviction was more important than the truth. Part of what Marcus is trying to draw attention to is this corrupt nature of our justice system, or as Paul Lathrop more correctly calls it, our legal system. The system does not seek justice or truth. For prosecutors and police chiefs, saving face or making a name for themselves is more important than making sure that an innocent man does not go to jail. Violent crime in America is perpetuated primarily by a very tiny minority of the overall population. Hardened repeat criminals who end up back on the streets rather than serving lengthy sentences for their crimes. One article I reviewed on the show last year referred to them as unicorns. It's a tiny fraction of the criminal population in this country, which is itself a tiny fraction of the country's overall population. But instead of focusing on those people, on those criminals, our legal system and our big city police departments fight to punish people like Marcus Weldon, or Shaneen Allen, if you remember that case. In Chicago, the political class fights to put roadblocks in the path of good people who want to defend themselves from the criminals in their neighborhoods that the politicians seem incapable or unwilling to stop. In Dallas, the county sheriff, she fights for sanctuary city policies to protect illegal aliens while colluding with hacks like Gabby Giffords to curtail the gun rights of law-abiding Americans. Now, as you listen to Marcus's story today, consider what you can do to change things, to, as Luther puts it, to help your neighbor to secure his rights and not allow them to be hindered or twisted, but to promote and strictly maintain them. Join the National Rifle Association. There is a banner on my website. Go click there, sign up. Go to NRA.com, sign up today. Join the Second Amendment Foundation. Join your state gun rights groups. Go to town halls. Go to city council meetings. Go to county commission meetings. Get involved. Just because Donald Trump won the election and that we avoided having Hillary Clinton be elected, that doesn't mean that our rights are secure. Yeah, we may have dodged a bullet, but as Ronald Reagan pointed out, and as Aaron reminded us last week in his segment, our freedoms are only one generation away from extinction. We will always have to fight for our rights against the media, against spineless politicians, against gun control activists, and corrupt police chiefs and prosecutors who would prefer to put a feather in their cap convicting an innocent man rather than admit that they were wrong. People like Marcus Weldon and Rhonda Ezell, whom we heard from last week, Shaneen Allen, who was arrested for having a lawful gun and crossing state lines in New Jersey, Paul Lathrop, as we heard last year, Aaron Craig, as we heard a few weeks ago. They've all got stories that are similar. The system failed them. It's failing to fight for truth. It's failing to fight for justice in the American way. And in our inner cities, it's failing doubly. Failing to stop the violence and entrapping those who don't have the resources or the knowledge to fight. Marcus Weldon's story is an interesting one. I hope you enjoy it. That's coming up next, right after this, right here on Armed Lutheran Radio. One of the lessons you're going to hear in today's special guest interview is having a good holster is absolutely critical if you're going to carry a firearm for self-defense. If you need a quality holster, let me recommend Cook's Holsters. I've found Cook's Holsters in the pre-podcast days when I bought a Cook's IWB holster to write a review, and I did a lot of Kydex holster reviews back in those blogging days. But I liked that holster from Cook's Holsters so much that I applied to become an official Cook's Holsters dealer. Cook's Holsters are American-made in the great state of Georgia. They are custom molded to fit your firearm. The advantage of Kydex over other materials is that it holds its shape. It doesn't stretch. It doesn't lose retention. It won't wear on the finish of your firearm the way leather will, for example. They're available for hundreds of gun models. They're in dozens of color combinations and different printed patterns and camouflage. They're great for concealed carry, for range work, for competition. They come with a lifetime warranty against defects and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Check them out today, www.cooksholsters.com, or visit the Armed Lutheran shop at armedlutheran.us/shop. Use the promo code ARMEDPODCAST to save 10% off of your order, and make sure you've got a quality holster and don't settle for anything less. Go to cooksholsters.com today.
I'm Pastor Evan Gigline of Table Talk Radio, and you're listening to Armed Lutheran Radio.
Welcome back to Armed Lutheran Radio. You know, we train and we practice and we study and prepare for that life or death moment when we've got to use a firearm in self-defense or to defend a loved one or our neighbors. We don't think enough about the aftermath of doing it, though. If in the unlikely event you've got to use a firearm for self-defense, and assuming that you're successful in doing so, what's your life going to be like afterwards? What are you going to face after that's all over? We talked to Paul Lathrop last year of the Polite Society podcast, and he talked about his legal troubles after just telling a guy that he had a gun. Aaron Craig was with us a few weeks ago talking about his Good Samaritan incident where he didn't have to fire his firearm, but they both had ordeals with the legal system. Today's guest has actually experienced that moment that we all train for and then some. Marcus Weldon was forced to use his firearm to defend himself back in 2014, and the justice system turned him into the bad guy. He's written a new book about that experience, The Santa Shooter, Guilty Until Proven Innocent, and he joins us by phone now. Marcus, welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hey, thanks for having me, Lloyd.
Well, thank you for being here. Let's go back to that night in December of 2014. This is in Detroit. Give us some background for those who are not familiar with your story. If they haven't been paying attention to the news, I don't know how they would have missed it. Your full-time job is working for a casino, right?
Right.
But that night you were working a second job at a Christmas event, which is why you were wearing the Santa suit.
Right.
So you and a coworker left the event. What happened? Well, why were you at that gas station?
Well, my coworker, a friend of mine, had a flat tire, and I met her at the gas station to help assist with the tire. Mm-hmm. During that moment of just trying to do something chivalrous, she was approached by two men, and one at the time, one man, and the other one was in the vehicle, and it became a situation where she was being physically and verbally harassed. And I looked up and seen what was going on. I intervened and said, hey, you know, what's going on? I seen that at least one of the individuals who was outside was pretty intoxicated. Not sure at the time what he was on, whether it was drugs, alcohol, or both. He became really violent, and physically assaulted me, and we got into a little physical altercation of our own, all because of me saying, hey, you know what's going on, and he took that as, I guess, hey, who are you to say anything to me, especially because I'm wearing this Santa suit. So I'm sure it was a bit of non-intimidating with the outfit I had on at that moment.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Let's go through that. No. Let's go through that for a second, because I watched the video from the convenience store, which you have up on your website, mm-hmm. and there are 4 camera angles. They're really not very good, especially the one over the window. You're at a convenience store. It's late at night, so you can't go inside the convenience store. They have one of those windows where you walk up and pay, right?
Right.
And there's these 4 different camera angles in the video on your website, and it's really hard to get a sense of where things are in relation to each other. So it starts with your friend is at the window paying for something or ordering something, asking for some chips or something, and the attendant's at the window with her. You can't really see what's going on. That's when it all kind of started. A car pulls up and a guy gets out and walks over to her. Where are you when this happens?
I was on the far end of the other side of the gas station, out of the camera view. And like you said, unfortunately, the camera was just really, really grainy and at bad angles. It didn't capture the actual initial part of the incident. And even the part that it did capture, it was very detail and very choppy. But when I walked up from the right side of the gas station where the air pump was at,
so you saw him walk up, right? And
yeah,
did you worry at that point there was something wrong?
Right. I think somebody pull up. I didn't think nothing of it. I mean, at first I was just more so just when I seen her getting really agitated and having words, and I seen him actually push her. I was like, okay, either she knows him or something's not right, So that's when I kind of was starting to approach and say, hey, what's going on? She was obviously agitated. She was obviously didn't approve of him putting his hands on her. So did it turn out that she knew him or no? Nope, she didn't know him. I think it was more so. I think it was a case of a man being under the influence and just feeling like he can kind of do whatever he wants to do.
So you, about a minute and 15 seconds into the video, you walk in from the left on the main video that's over the camera that's over the window. Unfortunately, we can't see the other guy or your friend, but we see you walk up, and it's hard to tell at that point that there's anything wrong. What did you say something to him immediately, or did you just kind of walk up and see what was going on?
I walked up. When I walked up, I looked over, and that's when they were kind of going back and forth. And I was kind of listening to what they were saying, and she said something along the lines of, why did you keep pushing? Why did you push me? And she said something like, he said something along the lines of, I'm just standing here. I didn't push you. And he kind of walked and got in her face, and they were kind of screaming back and forth. And that's when I said, hey, I said, I back up, or I can't remember exactly, honestly, the exact words I did say, but it was along the lines of back up, or get out of her face or something like that.
The video, you don't look. And we can see you kind of, your shoulders and up is about all we can see of you initially, and you don't look real agitated, and we can't see the other guy, so we can't really tell what's going on. And then about you're there for maybe a minute and a half before we finally get a look at this guy. And the only thing we see is his hand go up like he's gesturing towards you.
Yeah.
And very quickly after that, things changed.
Yeah. And if you see me, I kind of fall back. That was when he actually pushed me. He put his hands on me, like it was like you can kind of see what I kind of like. I was on a curved angle, so when he pushed me, I actually fell back off the curb. So I was like,
okay,
if you can understand what
you stepped back pretty quick.
yeah, that was actually the initial push. And so when he pushed me, I took my right leg and I ended up falling back off the curb. it was definitely some drugs, alcohol involved, which I later found out that he was four times over legal limit.
Holy cow.
Yeah, he was pretty bad. When he turned around, he said something to his buddy, and his buddy said something to him in the car. There was some verbiage exchange between he and his friend, because of course, if you see your friend having a shoving match, and look like you got a problem, of course, you're gonna you'd say something or possibly look for backup. So at that moment, I looked over at his buddy.
And I wondered about this the whole time because, all right, you have now had a physical altercation with this guy at the window, but his buddy's still sitting in the car.
Yeah, with the door open.
His buddy doesn't get out.
I don't know, because you can you tell that? Can you see that part too, that the door was open?
Yeah, they pull up and he gets out of the car and leaves the door open.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to tell from the two different camera angles what the relation of the car to you is in that video from the camera over the top of the window. I'm guessing that they're to your left. Is that right?
To the left, you're right.
Because you're facing him. Your friend is next to him. The window's behind them. The attendant's standing there watching the whole thing. You look over to your left, and I had wondered, did the guy in the car say anything?
Yes. That's when he began to say. I didn't know exactly what he said, but it was in another language because they were Arabic. That's where the fear really kind of jumped in, because it was a situation I didn't know. I said, okay, he's got backup.
Potentially 2-on-1. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got backup, and I don't know what's in the car. It's always the person who you don't see who you fear the most. Right,
exactly. And the reason I was asking about that was because we talk about the gun being a tool. It's a blunt force object like a sledgehammer. It's not the first tool that you go to unless you got no choice or you really fear for your life. And he pushes you off the curb, and your hand goes to your hip.
Yeah.
At that point, what's going through your head at that point? You've got one guy in the car. You've got one guy right in front of you, obviously not in the right state of mind, who's just pushed you. What are you thinking at this point?
Well, at that point, what I was really afraid of was I was afraid that his buddy was going to either come out and either jump me or because he was also, I seen him kind of moving around in the car, and I didn't know if he was searching for a firearm or a crowbar or something, any type of weapon in the car, because I seen him kind of move around really fast like he was looking for something. And he also had said something. So at that point, I was like, I'm getting ready to get jumped, or I'm getting ready to have a problem where I was worried about the passenger actually more than because the guy in front of me, I could see him straight on. And from what I seen, he didn't have a weapon that I know of. But
right.
The guy who was in the car was kind of my most, I was looking like, hey, what is this guy about to do?
Yeah, especially if you end up going to hands with this guy and having to fight him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you lose sight of the guy in the car. Okay, so now that makes perfect sense why you went to the gun so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and at that point, I didn't even know what I did was because unfortunately I didn't have my holster, which was a bad mistake on my part. Which is one of the things that I tell people, you definitely keep a holster, and I didn't. So I broke a law there. Oh, well, not a law, but a rule for gun owners, not them legally. So when he pushed me, my firearm actually started to slide and slip down into my pants.
Oh.
Yeah, which was a very, very bad thing that I learned a valuable lesson there. Always, always, always keep a holster, because anytime you get in a physical altercation, your gun can fall.
Right.
And it was more so me being lazy and just trying to hurry up and get out the car, and my holster was broken, and I didn't feel like playing around with it. So bad move on my part. But
so you were as much trying to secure the gun as you were trying to go to the gun. You were trying to keep it from getting away from you, right?
Exactly. I was trying to secure it, and at that point, I still didn't. I told him, I said, "Hey, back up," and he looked down, and I did, and I said I was armed. I did tell him I was armed, and I was hoping that me saying that would kind of scare him away, and so he and his buddy can just get out of, leave. But he said he had something for me, and he ran back to the car. So if you look at the video then, you can see him kind of digging in the car, and he never got in the car. He was halfway in, he never got in.
And at that point, you and your friends start backing away towards the direction you originally came.
Yes, you can kind of see that too, yeah. And we were both at that point terrified and scared,
Did you ever at any point think he's getting a weapon, or did you think, all right, well, maybe he's going to get in the car and drive away, or what?
No. From Detroit, when someone says I got something for you, the first thing you say is, "Oh, he's getting a weapon." So, it's either I pop the trunk, or I'm going, "Oh yeah, I got something for you," or whatever the case may be. But when he went in, when I see him in that car, I knew for sure. I said, "This guy is getting either a gun or some type of weapon."
Right.
So
you're headed back towards her car.
Yes, we're trying to back up and get out of there.
Okay. Is her tire fixed at that point, or
no? It's not.
Okay. Not. Was your car over there next to hers?
Mine is, yeah.
He comes out of the car and heads back toward the rear quarter panel of the car. How far from him are you at that point?
15 feet.
So you're like at a 45-degree angle off the right rear quarter panel, basically?
Yeah.
And he comes around the back of the car and squares up to you.
Yeah.
And at that point in the video, you fire first, right?
I fire first,
you can't
correct.
see it on the video, but you can tell because he kind of doubles over. And how many rounds did you fire?
3 to 4.
His friend in the passenger or in the driver's seat, who never got out, which I thought was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
He never got out of the car. At what point was he hit? Was he just caught in the crossfire? Kind of did a one of those 4 shots hit him, or did you actually have to engage him?
He was kind of hitting the crossfire, but it's really crazy because I actually heard shots seem like coming from the car. So to this day, I was so focused on the other guy. To this day, I scratch my head and I always think to myself, did his buddy fire out of the car? I can't say that I seen his buddy fire, but it was just really crazy because some of the people, some witness had said there was gunfire from the vehicle. So
you said you heard another shot and your friend started screaming. You were worried that she had been hit.
Yeah.
What did you ever the guy that you shot, the one from the window? Did you ever see a gun? Did he actually draw the gun or present it towards you at any point, or did?
Well, what I seen was what looked like from the 15, 20 feet I was at a black firearm. It looked like, closest I could pinpoint it was a 38.
Right.
It was something in this, like I said, I didn't get it was such a quick snapshot.
Right.
But he definitely had a black object in his hand.
Right.
He turned kind of sideways, and I remember he had his hand, and you look at the video, so he's kind of sideways, and if you look at his hand, it's kind of pointed at me.
Mm-hmm.
If you push pause, when he turns sideways, I believe his right hand, his body is sideways, but his right hand is pointing at me.
Right.
But the car he's in is black. He's got a black jacket. It's a grainy video, so it's like we tried to. That's actually the best we could get the video to look. But
yeah, it's not. It's a
not
terrible
helpful.
video.
One thing that was really crazy was when he kind of turned aside and pointed his hand after I started to fire, I heard return fire. So my mind is, okay, this guy is shooting back at me. And then I heard we had a witness say, which is on document too, that we ended up getting into court, that there were shots from the black car coming towards me.
That's the thing that is really interesting about that video. You would think, all right, your buddy has just been shot, right? And
right.
He's on the ground. He crawls from the back of the car. It's agonizing to watch him.
Yeah.
He crawls to the driver's side of the car, between the car and the gas pumps. The friend gets out, looks down at him, and then runs.
Right.
Now, he may be thinking, I'm getting out of the way of the gunfire, but he never comes back to help his buddy. He bends over. It looks like maybe, I know you suspect that maybe at that point he's picking something up and getting rid of a gun,
mm-hmm.
because he picks that up and he goes to the other side of the pumps again. And then when he finally comes back, he goes over to the window and he sits down.
Yeah.
And leaves his buddy on the other side of the car.
Yeah.
Did they ever find a gun?
No, and not only did they ever find a gun, they actually admitted they never searched the scene.
God.
He was never even searched.
The 911 call from the attendant inside the store, the guy says that the guy had a gun. You both had guns.
Yep, exactly. And guess what? That call was never even played in court.
I read that in one of the articles. Why did they not admit that? We're getting a little ahead, but we're there now.
I know it gets crazy.
Why did they never? First, they never searched the scene, and then they never would admit that into evidence. Why not?
The clerk who worked for the gas station, get this, he disappeared. He could not be found to be cross-examined. He quit his job. He moved out of the city. I had a private detective that actually found him the first time. He didn't want to cooperate. So my attorney, going by his advice, he said he doesn't want to cooperate. He doesn't want to come to court. We can subpoena him, but he's really shaken up, and he acts like he doesn't want anything to do anything with the case. I feel it's better they're going to bound it over. I feel it's better to bound it over to trial, and we'll cross-examine him in trial.
Right.
Because with everything he said, he made multiple statements. That wasn't the only one.
Oh.
He made a written one as well, more detailed to the police officer that it was 2 guns.
Right.
So we felt like, okay, well, we'll just cross-examine him in trial. He disappeared again, and this time we couldn't find him, and he never showed up. There was no records. The only thing we had of him was a P.O. box.
Did they arrest either of the other 2 guys that were involved?
They never arrested the other 2 guys involved. They took them straight to the hospital. They never searched them. They searched the car 2 days later. They never searched the dumpster. They never searched the trash can. They never taped the scene off. The entire scene was on record contaminated. They allowed people to come get gas, and leave as they please.
That was really bizarre. Was watching that video after it's all over, and there's still people pulling up, putting gas in the car, walking up to the window. One of the guys shot. He's still laying there, and there people just like it's nothing. At this point, after the shooting's over, you're off camera. You didn't get back in your car and drive off, though. What happened then?
I took off, and I started to call 911. I was so shaken up. But a black car started to follow me, and as you can see, the video of the black car, I thought it was the black car chasing me. I thought it was the guys who I just had a shootout with.
So at this point, you can't see the front. You're around the other side of the gas station. You can't see them from the other side. You think this is the same car.
Right.
So you took off running. And it turned out...
that it was an off-duty police officer following me.
They arrest you. No surprise, of course. They arrive after a call for a shooting, and you're running away. It looks suspicious, so they're trying to secure the scene. They don't do a great job of securing the scene, obviously. But before we get into your case and the legal part that followed it, looking back on that entire incident, is there anything that you think back? I know hindsight being 2020. Is there anything that you think you could have done differently, or that you wish you had done differently?
I wish I had a holster. If I had a holster, it may have went a lot smoother.
Right.
And I always try to figure out, was there anything I could have said to maybe de-escalate it? But it's very hard to talk to a drunk person.
Right.
I don't know if you ever had a conversation with an irate drunk person. It's like talking to a dog. It's just like they're barking and barking. You're just,
there's no way to de-escalate.
The guy was just a waste of breath. He was out of his mind. He was just
right. If it had been just him, probably could have handled that very differently. But you had a situation where you had him right in front of you, aggressive, yelling, pushing, and a guy in a car that you had no idea what he was going to do. So you didn't have a whole lot of options.
Yeah, I think one of the other options, maybe I could have grabbed the drunk guy and used him as a human shield. As one of my, I know it's kind of far-fetched, but
So how long were you, so how did the police treat you when I'm sure they weren't nice. How did they treat you when they came up out of the car and you realized it was police?
Oh, man, yeah. Well, they said I ran from law enforcement. They really made it seem like I really was just a vigilante at that point. Hence the cover of the book.
Right.
At the point, I ran in the alley, and I literally was looking behind me, looking like I was running from them, which I was. I was running from them, no doubt.
Right.
But I thought they were someone else.
They cuff you, and there's that classic photograph of Santa face down in the street, handcuffed. How long were you laying there on the pavement? And what were they doing?
10 minutes I was laying there. That's actually how I started the book off, really describing that graphic scene. But it was they were just heckling me.
Where was your friend at this point?
She ran down another street. I lost her, and just the whole cluster of just confusion. I lost her.
So she wasn't there to tell them what had happened. All they had was you. So they take you to jail. Tell us what that was like. Most of us, our only experience with getting booked and going to jail is television. So was it anything like you expected it was going to be?
Extremely inhumane. It was rusty toilets. Everything smelled like straight.
Right.
The roaches.
Oh.
The mice. The holding cell has no bed, no mattress. You're just laying on a hard floor. And cracked toilets. The smell, they had urine in it, probably sitting in their feces. And so you got the smell that's just covering the room. And then you got people ushered in and out. Some of them more loud and boisterous than the others. You're sitting amongst a bunch of accused criminals, and you don't know who's violent, who's not.
Right.
So of course, in your mind, you're like, "Who am I going to have a problem with any of these guys in there?" We're sitting in. First, I was quarantined, and we ended up getting 72 hours later. We ended up getting transferred to Wayne County. Wayne County was a whole other site. So now you got people in orange jumpsuits. They strip you down naked and say you open up your private area and cough and all that type stuff. So you're pretty much, what's the word I want to use? Violated.
Right.
But luckily, I was able to get a bond and get out of there before I was completely just torn apart. I didn't have to strip down fully like the other guys. I was able to get out of there.
You were in for 72 hours, out on bond. They put you on house arrest, right, with a GPS tracker?
Right.
They charged you with 7 felonies, right? You were looking at maybe 30 years probably if you were convicted?
Yeah, 20, 30 years.
So I'm not going to spoil the book, but they made you out to be the bad guy, right?
Yeah, I was guilty until proven innocent.
But you had some witnesses, right? Your friend who was there that night, she testified on your behalf. You had the gas station attendant who completely disappeared. They didn't allow the 911 call. Now, wait. How did that work out with the attendant and the 911 call once you went to trial?
I still couldn't get it played, but I had I call it a power move in my book. Put it like this. I was able to think through the situation and get some of the evidence through the back door to come in, and I outsmarted the prosecutor. I mean, she thought she had every angle covered. I personally believe they made sure that we couldn't find the clerk because they knew he was. He would destroy the entire case for him. With him, the video, my testimony, and Erica's testimony. I mean, there's no case.
And the video, did they allow the video in as evidence?
They actually told me there was no video. I was first told there was no video. It didn't work.
Really?
And, so I believe they did that. Because one thing about the video, the first question is people always ask, well, why did he just didn't get in the car and leave? What was he coming back? I mean, everybody who looked at the video said he looks like he's the aggressor because he's coming back. You know what I mean? Like he's not
right.
He's not leaving. I mean, why the only person that will come back? Only a person who will come back will be a person who feels that he wants to escalate the situation.
So did the other 2 guys that you shot, did they testify? What were their statements like? How did they paint the scene?
The guy who came back, the drunk guy, he disappeared. He went to his country. He never showed up to court.
And just for our listeners, he went to Yemen.
Yeah, he went to Yemen. Never showed up to court. And the other guy, he did show up to court. His first statement to the police was his boy was going to the car to get a baseball bat to defend himself. That was his first statement. His second statement was his boy never made it to the car. He didn't grab anything.
So he changed his description of the events?
Yes, he changed the description of the event. It went from getting a baseball bat to defend himself, and then it went to he was trying to get in the car, and I shot him before he made it to the car.
They tried to prevent the video from coming into evidence. They had this guy painting you as the aggressor. They had no weapon because they didn't search the scene for a weapon. So everything pointed to you as the bad guy.
Right.
But you managed to get the video into evidence. And,
right.
And the 911 part of it, did you get all of the 911 call or part of it?
I didn't get any of the 911 call, but I did get his written statement.
Ah, okay. So you got the written statement.
Because, they had an officer come to the scene, and they said, well, what happened?
Right.
And he said, what happened? And the officer wrote it out, and, so I said, well, you know what? The 911 tape can't get in, so you know what we're going to do? Let's try to get that statement in here that he wrote down, he signed off on.
Right. And we've gotten a little bit ahead of ourselves, but before you went to trial, they came to you and tried to offer you a plea deal.
When I had the video, 911 tape, the statement that the clerk made, all in my possession, and then the toxicology report, I felt like I had no case. I mean, they had no case. So they came with me with a plea deal saying take 1 year in jail, and avoid prison time.
What did they want you to plead to?
Felonious assault.
So did they offer you the same deal every time? I think you wrote, or in one of the articles I read, that they came to you several times with plea deals. They
kept coming. They came with the 5 years at first, and that was like midway through everything. But then that 1 year deal, they proposed that 3 times. But then the same day, right before trial. I mean, when I say right before trial, I mean literally. We are standing outside the courtroom getting ready to go in and get this thing started. Literally.
And at this point, you've got all that evidence that you mentioned. You knew you had a better case than they did, and now they're just trying to get whatever they can.
Exactly. And which I did know before I decided doing I didn't know that they were not going to allow the 911 tape not to be played. I didn't know that. So once I figured that, when I found that out, my heart dropped. Because now I'm like, wait a minute. I was going in this case thinking that I had all the evidence to show. They're not even letting me show the evidence.
So you decided, I'm not taking a deal. We're going to court. How long did it take to go from the day they arrested you to the day you actually stepped in the courthouse?
A year and 3 months.
So you've got no criminal record, right? You're a legal CHL holder. You're responsible. You're single dad, working 2 jobs in Detroit. Really anywhere that should be held up as a role model. And so they tried to paint you, even though they knew they didn't have a real good case. They still tried to paint you as the bad guy, right? In court.
Yeah, they still tried to.
They tried to suggest that you misconstrued the whole thing, or were you this? Did they try to play up the whole? He's got a concealed carry permit. He's a kind of like the thing that like they tried to do to Zimmerman with he's just gung ho and he's a wannabe cop kind of thing, or did they make it out to be a misunderstanding and you're just?
They tried to make it seem like I was a jealous thug who was mad that someone pushed my girlfriend. I draw a lot of comparisons to the George Zimmerman case, but for me, I believe that my case is actually stronger than his, for the simple fact he has
Well, you had you had a ton of evidence on your side that he didn't have. All he had was eyewitnesses and his testimony. You had video, you had a 911 call, you had a written statement from the guy who was inside the store standing right there when it happened. You had, and plus the testimony of your friend. Yeah.
And my testimony, right?
Yeah. So how long did the trial last?
A whole week.
So did you take the stand? Did they call you to testify?
I took the stand.
And what was that like? Was that anything like you see on television, or was it?
Oh man, taking a stand is crazy. But according to my attorney, I was one of the best clients he's ever had take the stand. He said I did phenomenal, and the main reason why, I never made a previous statement.
Really?
On record.
So your statement about the events that night took place in court.
Exactly.
Wow.
When I was arrested, never made a statement.
So they never even got a statement from you?
Never did.
That is amazing.
And
how long did the jury deliberate before they came back with a verdict?
4 hours. Did
you ever doubt? Did you ever worry?
Oh, yeah. I I mean, one thing about it, I didn't have the 911 tape and evidence. I was going on the presumption that, you know, people understood my point of view. I talked to the jurors afterwards. A lot of them were rooting for me, and they were just appalled. And when one of the jury members, when they found out that there was a 911 tape, they was really upset because they said, "Wait a minute, you mean to tell me that it was more evidence that we could have heard that even would have made our decision even more
right
lean towards him?" I mean, they made a decision. They thought it was a pretty easy decision, but they didn't even hear the 911 tape. So just imagine if they had heard that. They really would have been like, "Oh man, wait a minute."
A year and a half this consumed your life, basically, and you've now written a book about the experience. How did you, what made you decide to write the book, The Santa Shooter, Guilty Until Proven Innocent?
Well, I wanted to highlight some points about how you present yourself in front of a jury. I wanted to have like pretty much a guide, especially for young urban kids, man. Because and when I say kids, I'm meaning anywhere from 16, 18, 19, 20. You know, I mean, I kind of look at everybody. If you're below really 25. I learned that from my experience, there's so many young guys that are even younger than me that get their CPL, they get caught up in their system, and they just do the wrong thing. They jump the gun, and they make statements. They don't know the law, and they get screwed. And I've seen how people could take plea deals, and I just wanted to have a book that people can refer to say, okay, I read Marcus' book. I know what to do here. Constantly I'm seeing cases come across on the news in Detroit, and it's just like, why did he do that? Why did he do that? Why did he say that? Your words are, I mean, the way you form your words together, you know, and sometimes those little small details can make or break your case. And a lot of people don't get that. So
you're trying to coach them, trying to teach them how to present yourself, how to tell your story, what not to say.
I did a lot of comparison to law enforcement. One thing about law enforcement, when they have a shooting, they actually take time to make statements. They don't jump right out and do it, make a statement.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about my entire trial. I talk about the entire story. I put it in a story format, so you're reading the entire story from front to end. So I even go back into my childhood and things that tied into the case. The way they try to destroy your character.
Mm-hmm.
One thing about it, if you have anything that you have ever done in your past, you better believe that the prosecutor is going to try to bring something up to try to destroy your character.
Right.
And as a young, or any pictures that's on Facebook, social media, pictures that look like, oh man, this guy's smoking weed, he's drinking, he's a gangbanger, or whatever the case is. Those are things that they look for. And I was blessed to really have a mindset where I grew out of a lot of the ignorant stuff I used to do when I was 16 years old. But there's a part in the book, and I don't want to spoil it, but they tried to use some high school pictures.
Really?
Pictures that, they look nothing like me anymore. But I just realized how dirty they were, man. It was just, and I went for help. I think one part that you will really enjoy in the book is I went for help. I talked to different civil rights activists, and I realized that a lot of those liberal civil rights activists wouldn't help me. It was the gun right activists. It's almost, on a political standpoint, it really turned my nose up. I was born in a Democratic family, and
mm-hmm.
really made me take a second look at that whole ideology that's been pretty much forced upon us in the demographic. And I started to become more of an independent thinker because of it. So I met a lot of high-profile civil rights activists that really just kind of turned a deaf ear to my story.
And it was because of the gun? It's
because of the gun. Just to keep it real. Like, I mean, I grew up in Detroit my entire life. So, I mean, I'm from the urban environment. I'm from a lot of places where a lot of people don't go. As far as like when they come visit Detroit, they go visit downtown. They don't go visit 7 Mile. They don't go visit 6 Mile. They don't go see the areas where their houses are ran down, homes are broken, families just, you may have a mother and working 3 jobs, father nowhere to be found.
Right.
I was blessed. I had both my parents, but this is the area that I come from. So ignorance, as far as the gun laws, that's like the least of people's words. I mean, there's so much ignorance on just the Bill of Rights in general, history in general. I mean, everything. There's nothing. The schools are broken, so people are just born in ignorance, and this is kind of like through social learning is passed down.
Well, and you kind of feel like one side in the political debate wants it that way because
one side wants it there. I agree. I have the story that really is the narrative that people that they're trying to push, and I'm a prime example. I mean, they're going to turn you to the bad guy. I've had police officers that come to me and tell me that they don't know why they prosecute me. That's phenomenal. So.
Well, and I think that's a large part of why they offered you plea deals right before going into the courtroom, because they knew they were going to lose and they wanted to try to get something.
Yeah. So my whole thing is, why do you use the fear to try to get an innocent man to take a plea and mess his whole life up when you know you're wrong?
That really makes no sense, and that's sad. That is you know what. When we had Paul Lathrop on the show last year, one of the things he said in the interview with me was that we don't have a justice system, we have a legal system.
Yeah.
So it's not about justice anymore. It's about what can we get within the law. Can I get this guy on something? It's not a matter of trying to find the truth. It's not a matter of trying to actually see that justice is served. It's especially if your career as a prosecutor is dependent on how many convictions you can get.
Exactly.
And that's sad.
Yeah, I agree. I talk about that too.
And I'm sorry that you went through all this, and I am certainly glad that you came out on the other side, the victorious, and that you now have a great story that can be used to educate people and teach them about the pitfalls of our legal system and how to responsibly carry a gun and deal with the potential aftermath. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Marcus Weldon is the author of The Santa Shooter, Guilty Until Proven Innocent. Check him out. Buy the book at marcusweldon.com, and be sure to pick up a copy of the book. I cannot wait to read it. Marcus, Christ blessings to you and your family. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show, and blessings to you, and good luck in the future.
Thanks. I can't wait to get a chance to meet you in person. I'm pretty sure I'll see you in Dallas.
We'll see you in Dallas. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. I want to thank you for listening. It's been an interesting episode, and I hope you learned a lot and had a lot to think about after hearing Marcus Weldon's story. And I hope you will go out and you will get involved. Thank you for listening again. Thank you to Marcus Weldon for being on the show. Really enjoyed having him with us today. I really appreciate you making the show a part of your life. Be sure to check out the Reformation Gun Club, great exclusive content. This interview with Marcus Weldon will end up on the Gun Club next month, because this interview was very long and wide-ranging. It was probably twice as long as what you heard today, and all of that interview will be on the Gun Club. Go to gunclub.armedlutheran.us for as little as $1.50 a month. You can become a member and enjoy all of that great content and member discounts. Join us again next week. We'll talk to you about the Arkansas State IDPA Championship that Sergeant Bill and I participated in. Until then, keep shooting, keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Armed Lutheran Radio. For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, and TuneIn. This podcast is made possible by Cook's Holsters and contributions from listeners like you.